Hello, everyone, and welcome to Building Buy-in for your project inside and outside your organisation. Brought to you today by the always wonderful Michael Morrissey, the Managing Director and founder of Morrissey Law and Advisory. Michael's going to give you a little bit more background and info about himself, so I'm going to keep that intro fairly short. But I am going to say this is a fabulous session and that you're going to enjoy it very much, I know. And for those of you thinking about or working on innovation projects, you know how critical building buy-in is for their success. So I know this is going to be a great session for you. So with all of that being said, Michael, really delighted to have you here, and I should say have you back to the centre, and really looking forward to this presentation. Welcome.
Thanks, Terry. Look, really excited to be back here. Really excited. We're chatting to most people outside of lockdown for almost the first time in a very long time. Particularly, I'm in New South Wales, so we're coming out of it, and I'm starting to experience things for the first time again. It sort of feels fresh and new. It's lovely to see you, Terry, and we're all a lot closer to being in the same room again, which is extraordinarily exciting. We just need to get through Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, jumping right in. So I'll put on the leather suit to start things out. Look, so my background, I'll get to the context of the picture very shortly. My background, I'm a construction lawyer. I was fortunate enough to, before I set up Morrissey about 4 years ago, to have worked in, a new law firm with a group of people who are pretty innovative. And as part of that journey, I went to the end of it and went, okay, well, I like building things. I might build something myself and start to build out a law firm with a really a big innovation agenda, a people-centric culture. So, employees first, clients first, and see where that led, and then see where we went from there. So we're a team, we're New South Wales based at the moment, and we're pretty proudly, we have our heart sort of in the region. So we've got an office in Sydney, but our head office is based in Newcastle, which I love. I'm a few 100-metre walk from the beach, and as I was just saying to Terry, Newcastle, we're a wonderful little coffee hub. So I'm surrounded by nice little coffee stores, surrounded, right next to the water. And it's great for what we do. We do a lot of work around construction, infrastructure, manufacturing. It's a hub of it. We're right on, literally on the coalface of a lot of things happening. We're a mining-centric city, but doing some very cool projects, and that innovative mindset sort of is a big part of the city. And then we've got offices on the mid-north coast and in the central western New South Wales as well. So I'm going to talk today not from an academic standpoint or a heavily learned standpoint, I suppose. I've done a lot of the reading. I'm going to probably talk through what our experience has been as a new, a little n new. We're only 4 years old, and most of our life has felt like it's been in COVID, but a new law firm trying to do new things with a passion for innovation and people, and talk through some of the, at least one of the main projects we've embarked on, and sort of share the good, the bad, and the ugly associated with it, and where we're going, and sort of telling the stories about how it's gone to date. So straight to the context of me in leather. This is on the wall of our innovation team's office. So one of our main projects we've embarked on has been named Kill Bill a Bull. So very creative. I'm not the creative one in the team, and with the goal of gradually moving our entire practice to a focus around value-based pricing. The reason we embarked on that project was we want to be an employee and people-centric business. We were starting to, I've lived the billable hour life. My team has largely come out of big law firms and have lived the billable hour life. And as we started to talk about the things we wanted to achieve as a business and some of the big ideas we wanted to try and put in place, one of the roadblocks we kept coming up against was was the hourly rate. Like when we started the business 4 years ago, we talked about we'd love to do, see the benefits of a 4-day week or try those things like unlimited leave, but they become extraordinarily difficult in the context where everything is dictated by trying to get, somewhere between 5 and 7 billables done a day. So we embarked over 12 months ago now on Project Kill Billable, was what its first name is. Most of the time it's just referred to VBP now, but that's one of our lead projects. And it certainly had mixed results, although swinging on the side of success. And that's what we'll talk a bit about today. And those kind of projects sort of form the basis of the other things we're doing. We're talking to people around building some pretty cool tech stuff. We're talking to people, we've got side projects around sort of building resources for different parts of the industries we're in. But the one I'm going to focus in today is really our innovation project around Kill Billable, because that's been the biggest one, and it's probably got its the lion's share of the ups and downs to share with you. Questions as we go along, again, feel free. So what I'll be doing today is, I guess, talking a little bit about, giving a bit of an introduction. We'll talk about knowing your mission, measuring buy-in, garnering buy-in, and the key pieces that go into that: communication, training, culture building, taking your team on the journey. Then moving into the maintaining buy-in, celebrating the wins, acknowledging the losses, and recognising the team, and wrapping up with some Q&A. So again, if there's a pertinent question you think of during the time I'm talking at you, please feel free to throw it up on the screen. I'm easily distracted, so I like it. So the big part is you really have to understand your mission. I've thrown up the old JFK and Man on the Moon stuff, and most people here, I'm sure, are familiar with that, but I still love it because it's an example. They set a mission, no idea when it got set, what was that, 63 or a little bit earlier, how they were going to get there. But 6-7 years later, they achieved it. They had a clear understanding of what the mission was. They knew what their project was, and that's one of the critical pieces. If you're looking to get buy-in from your team, if you're looking to get buy-in from your clients, customers, however you want to frame them, if you're looking to get buy-in from the people around you, you actually have to start with the big piece of knowing what the mission is. And I think one of the things we see people get distracted on is they start to think about a mission and then get caught up of the how, why, the how. We're talking in the concept of the why. They get caught up on the how they're going to get there. But I'm pretty firmly of the view you need your mission, your purpose, however you want to define it. There's a whole bunch of different ways that sort of lead to the same conclusion. You need to have that in place. And if you don't have it in place, the project you're doing, that innovation project you're looking to do, is going to really struggle to succeed, and you're going to get caught in a cycle of project grief. I can say that because of, we've lived that experience. So one of the big things where we talk about a lot is, loving to learn and spending a lot of time reading, listening, engaging with others before deciding on your mission. But, from my standpoint, it's absolutely critical that you know what your mission is going to be. So let's assume you've got your mission in place and you understand what that's going to look like. Now we need to get into thinking about data in a little bit of detail. And again, depending on what side of the spectrum you want to sit on, some people love data and think it's the sexiest thing in the world. Some people absolutely detest it. But you have to have an understanding of what data you're looking at and what you are looking to measure. So from my standpoint, it's really important to understand what your baseline is. And on our project, so when I started the business, we always had the view of moving entirely to value-based pricing. And if I'm perfectly frank, we got busy, we grew pretty quickly. We're 20-something people now. We went through a few periods of rapid growth. And when that happened, we cast aside what our mission was and sort of focused in on doing legal work and got lost along the way. And some of the problems we had each time when we did that was we hadn't actually turned our mind to what the baseline of the project was going to be. So we need to know what we're working from to understand what we're working towards. So for us, when we in mid last year, mid 2020, which does feel, with a few COVID lockdowns and everything else, feels like a very, very long time ago, but it's not that long ago. We sat down and went, okay, we're going to get serious about this. And we engaged an innovation lead, Gab, who's has a degree in innovation, has done her legal training as well, and is a phenomenally clever person, far cleverer than I am. She'd probably be a better place to be given this than I am. But yeah, she spent a lot of time, once we sort of gave her what the mission was, working out what the baseline was, so we knew what we were working from and then where we were working towards. Once we'd sort of worked out the baseline, the next big piece that follows is looking at what you're going to what you actually want to measure, and what those change success indicators, as we put it that way, are going to look like. So, we talked a lot. We ended up with whiteboards in an office full of potential change success indicators. And that was before we even worked out how we were going to measure what those indicators were. But we ended up, I think there was at 1.4 whiteboards full of just lists of things that we might look to measure. And then it ended up going full beautiful mind with the the lines connecting different ones and trying to work out where they got there. But for us, we started to look at the few things we started to look at for how we'd measure success for value-based pricing. So talking about one of our lead projects, adoption was the big one. So I understand most people here are in law firms or from a legal background, and it's really hard for lawyers, particularly experienced lawyers that have worked in large firms, to decide to make a change shift from thinking in terms of hourly rate. So for us, one of the big things was getting people to adopt and take on value-based pricing as a starting point for when they were putting together new matters. Again, we also had to work, there's a whole bunch of parameters sitting behind that as to what we defined value-based pricing to look at and how it was going to get measured within the firm. But then other things we placed a lot of emphasis on, like I said at the outset, we wanted to be we're a people-centric firm. And to me, there's no point having this mission in place where I think we're going to do some great things and be able to look after and add more value to people and our clients if the project is so punishing that it actually hurts the people that it's involved with. Like, there's obviously always a little bit of pain point in change, but if we were doing something where I, as the managing director, was being an ideologue and saying, well, value-based pricing is best no matter what, without turning their mind to what that meant for our team and our culture. That was going to be something that we need to spend a fair bit of time thinking about, and how would we measure that success. And other things around faith in leadership was another big one as well. How we were steering the ship through what was a pretty dramatic change piece for our clients, and particularly in the context of the type of work we do. So, some of the tools we use to do that, just to flag it, again, we try lots of things. So these are just two that are put up there at the moment, but Culture Amp and Employment Hero are two of the tools we've started to use in the background to help measure some of those things. But you need to work out for yourself what those what change success indicators look like within your business. And I guess I'm spending a lot of time talking in the internal context, because, as I mentioned further, you need to understand what's happening internally before you start to look at the internal. Again, I'm talking my lived experience, but the reading we've done around it sort of backs up that position as well. So you need to measure buy-in before starting the project, and this also helps you understand where to focus your efforts to garner buy-in. So now, once we've got a baseline understanding of how people felt using our project around value-based pricing, what the concerns were, what we needed to look at to measure success, then we were able to start turning our mind to, okay, what can we do to actually get that buy-in going? And then we've got those indicators in place to sort of measure against, and they're not going to be a clean graph. If you think you're going to watch a line that sort of swings up the whole time, maybe you're far better at this than what I was. That's wonderful. But we certainly saw with the buy-in, the waves, and we saw some pretty big dips as we went along it. And that to us also showed that we were starting to measure. We started to work out the right things to measure that success, because that, we were seeing the change pieces, we were understanding what was happening. So going back to what I was talking about before, you need to understand the internal dynamics before looking at the external. And I mean, I'm really big on this. It's one thing to go and, build, start to sell to clients, customers, however you want to frame those people, and to industry. But if you're not looking after your own house, it's going to be really hard to do. So to me, getting the sausage factory right, if you want to put it that way, like making sure everything we've got is clean, working efficiently, people understand it, people believe in it. People want to innovate, people want to go on the journey with you. Working out how to do that project in a way that they feel like they succeed is absolutely critical. Like there's not going to be a lot of joy in going out to market where everyone thinks, oh, it's this wonderful thing, and you've got a sweatshop sitting behind you where everyone's unhappy. So for me, internal comes first and external follows. So obviously you need both, and you need to turn your mind to what what your team thinks, what your consultants, what the people around you day to day think, what your board thinks, depending on where you are. What buy-in you need from clients as well, and other third parties. So you've got all these elements, but I like to start internal and then move external. So like I said, we've loved Culture from an internal tool, but that took quite a bit of work to get that rolling. We started, and we still do use a bunch of tools out of Google, Microsoft, SurveyMonkey. We love Airtable for form surveys. We've constantly got little tools we like to measure buy-in using Slack. People see little pollies in Slack coming through from us all the time, and we find we spend a lot of time, for example, doing conversation pieces, because not everything can get measured successfully or well with a survey form. So sort of also moving into understanding how you want to do it. So to garner that buy-in, both from an internal and external perspective, again, I'll talk from the internal perspective first, but like I said, we do a lot of reading. Brene Brown has carries a lot of weight in our firm, and I want to start with that point. If you're trying to lead change and innovation through your business with any degree of success, you have to have a lot of empathy. Putting people through a process of change and a process of innovation, or a process of any kind of big change piece, you do have to have a lot of empathy, because it's really hard. And even if you firmly believe, and your team firmly believes in the mission that you've got and the outcomes that might be achieved down the line, you've got to have empathy for just how hard that's going to be. And particularly, you're doing an innovation piece, there's a good chance it hasn't been done before, or you can't find good examples, or it hasn't been done successfully before in the way you want to do it. All those kind of pieces come into it. But at a very high level, you need to have empathy for your team and the people that are actually experiencing that change, because you go from doing things a certain way, and people try and shake it up, twist the dial, and it can get really tough. So we talk in three concepts. There needs to be leadership, leaders, and leading. We need all three. So there has to be leadership at the top. There has to be people involved that are leading that are leaders within the business, and there has to be people leading that change. So it's not just a grand idea and everything's going to fall in place. You need people that are implementing it. You need people that are helping boost people up, and that needs to be ongoing. That needs to be done on an ongoing basis. You need to start to put in place activities that can garner buy-in. And again, going in with that sense of leadership and that sense of empathy is really important, because if you're doing activities to garner buy-in, there might be slight shifts in how you're actually going about achieving your mission as well. We did a lot of things internally and externally, and I'll touch on a few of those later. And we're still doing those on an ongoing basis. Communication. I don't think I can emphasize the value of communication, both internal and external, enough. You need to be having meaningful conversations with people on an ongoing basis. I've put continuous there, but it's absolutely critical. If you need to be communicating with your team what's happening, again, telling them every up and down of the process may not be useful, but sort of having a clear strategy around communication, both in terms of providing thoughts, providing leadership, taking feedback, providing feedback, all those kind of things. Communication has to be ongoing, and there has to be the kind of communication, both internal and external, that allows for a lot of candor. There's no point getting on the soapbox in your office and preaching at the staff or preaching at clients that this grand project you're doing is going to be the best thing for them since sliced bread or whatever else might make them happy. I love sliced bread. You need to be in a position where you've got candid communication ongoing. That means you're getting feedback. It means people are raising problems. It means people are hopefully coming to you with solutions. It means you get in that graph, like I said, of that change is not a linear line just going like that. It's there's going to be the swings, there's going to be the roundabouts, there's going to be real down points during that project, but the communication piece is critical to that. Training. If you're doing an innovation piece, you need to be training people through that process. You need to actually be working out what you're doing. To get that buy-in, you need to work out what the critical points and hot topics are going to be within your team. And we spend a lot of time doing internal training. And that's as you're going through that communication piece, as you're listening to what your team is saying, you're going to find those pressure points. So for us, one of the big ones is how to have a value conversation with the client. Like that was a really big piece that came up earlier. Well, how do I clients that are so used to doing things on an hourly rate, then maybe people haven't needed to communicate upfront, what's happening and what the value is and talking through the value proposition in the same way. There's a lot of nervousness around that. So we did a whole bunch of sessions around that, from role play right through to getting people in that have run and managed large law firms to speak through those processes, working through training programs that were outside of industry. There's some, Tim Williams, for example, does some wonderful training in our area around value-based pricing that is not, that you can buy online, that is not focused on legal services, but the lessons rolled through. We've got project management training coming up that I think we're doing through Gilbert and Tobin, for example, as a team. They've got some wonderful capacity there. We're paying for that training to come up in what was meant to be September this year, but we ended up in lockdown, so we're looking to do it in 2022. It's the kind of training you do as a team in hopefully a room together. But for us, that's an ongoing investment piece. If we're communicating effectively, if we're showing empathy, if we're doing activities to work out what's going on, we're going to find gaps where there needs to be training, and that includes both as leaders as well as for the team generally. Culture building exercises, stuff should be fun. I know that sounds that sounds like it should be quite intuitive to know that things should be fun, but going on these journeys, like we said, it's going to be hard. You need to show empathy. But it's nice to have moments where you just sit back and have fun with it all. The most recent one, as yesterday, I think we had a hedgehog cake bake-off, not led by me, but people sort of went, okay, well, let's trying to get the creative juices flowing and trying to work out ways to think through different problem solving. One of the people in our innovation team said, let's do a bake-off. So we had a whole bunch of hedgehog cakes in the office. There's still a bunch in the kitchen, so I'm looking forward to a slice of cake after this. But and it was measured on creativity, realism, and a whole bunch of other things. But activities that get people thinking about solving problems in a different way. And for us, doing a bunch of activities around leading teams, measuring value, working together to solve difficult problems or wicked problems is really important, because for a lot of people in our team, that's the nervousness around value-based pricing. It feels like this difficult and wicked problem that's hard to solve. If we do a bunch of activities as a team to work out how to solve difficult problems, the confidence goes up. So we've done things from Lego builds through to the bake-off most recently, through to the old high school egg drop. And it's been really interesting to see the solutions people come up with, and also working out how to solve problems together. To get that buy-in, you also need to test it. Like it's not an academic process. If you're doing an innovation project or process, you could build something wonderful. But if you're thinking about the people experience at the heart of it, you need to test it. Like there's no point building something out and then going, here it is. Let's go, guys. I've built it. It's good. Go do it. It's just not going to work. And I think anyone that's tried that, and I can say on some smaller projects, I tried to do it that way. And of course, once we got people giving me good, honest feedback, we found 1,000,001 faults that we needed to fix. So ongoing testing leads to a better product. It leads to, a higher likelihood of success on your mission. And that's, and it also means you have to show a bit of vulnerability, which is really, really important. So, testing things with clients like, oh, that didn't work, I didn't enjoy that experience, getting that feedback. We're big on debriefs, which are really hard to, again, sitting down and having those hard and candid conversations can be difficult. But yeah, doing lots of testing, internal and external, working through processes, trying different things, getting the feedback out of it. Again, testing only goes so far if you're not getting that feedback loop that comes off the back of it, and doing that with your clients, with your peers, with your team, and making sure you're doing it with people that are going to be honest champions. So again, it goes back to what we talked about at the start. If you've got a clear mission and you're able to articulate that well, it's purposeful, it's meaningful, all those things that attach to it. You need to be able to, find clients and people within your business that are prepared to be honest champions. And you don't want people that just pat you on the back no matter what. Not those people aren't going to help you succeed. I've tried to test things with some of my most difficult clients, and they're not necessarily the ones I'm closest with by any stretch. But they're people I'm going to go, well, that was rubbish. But if I go, that's rubbish, they'll generally give me a because. So you want that honest feedback. You want to find those champions. So obviously you need to get that buy-in. You need to take the team and clients along for the journey. So again, it's an internal and external thing. People are talking about this across this series, so I'm not going to get into too much depth, but user-centric design is absolutely critical. Anything you're building as part of an innovation process should have people and the users at the heart of it. You need to be thinking about what that is. It has to be workable. I sat down with a friend who was a school teacher recently, and someone had just built an entirely new intranet system for them, and the person that had built it had not spoken to a single person about how they worked, and it had very particular pathways you had to follow to access certain things, and none of it was workable. None of it reflected the day-to-day. The thing got scrapped after hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent for this private school. It was just an example of if they talked to people during the process, particularly at the outset, once they said why they were doing it, you would end up with something that was pretty awesome as opposed to something that just gets scrapped. In the same way, if you've got that people-centric experience at the heart of it, you need diversity, you need inclusivity, you need to have a diverse and inclusive team, and you need to get different perspectives. And that harnesses all levels of diversity and inclusivity to try and get the best result. The more perspectives, the more different perspectives you can get on something, not beyond just, well, they're in my team and they're a client, is really important. I mean, even within our team here, we've tried to employ a pretty diverse and inclusive team, but having conversations just across our business units. If I talk to accounts, via operations, via our design team, via our lawyers, via our leadership team, we're getting different feedback from each, and trying to bring those together in a meaningful way becomes really important. So if I wasn't having a conversation, if we're talking about the concept of buy-in, if I'm not having a conversation with accounts, build something out that's wonderful, and then their experience changes, in a very big way, I think what's going to lead on from that is, there's going to be problems that come off the back. Well, they're not going to know how to build clients using our value-based focus. I suppose, if they don't know how to build clients, if they don't know how we're operating, if they don't know when we're going to build clients, if they don't know how value-based billing affects their day-to-day, if they don't understand what that means from a debtor perspective, all those things, we're going to have cash flow problems in the business. There's a whole bunch of things. Operations is the same. There's some comments coming and questions coming through. So I'll leave those there for now as I work through this. And I'll put down same but different for clients and users. So, you're not going to test things in the same way, or you're not going to take every person on the exact same journey. You have to embrace that diversity. You've got to be, whilst being inclusive, you have to get those different perspectives, and, you have to understand that what one person experiences may not be the same as the other. A big lesson I learned, I like drop dead dates. I know that works in my head. It doesn't work for other people. You've got to be flexible with the timetable. You're building a mission. We're not as I like to think, we're not lighting the flame at the opening ceremony of the Olympics. There's not a date when something has to be hard done by, and maybe there is for your project, but don't have a drop dead date unless you absolutely need it. Having a timetable, we like Gantt charts, building out what you're doing, when you're going to do it, when you're trying to get these things done, building, critical paths and mapping things out, wonderful. But you have to understand that there needs to be some flexibility around how things can happen, and there needs to be flexible within reason, I suppose. I get frustrated if something's not done just because something isn't done. If something's delayed or slowed down because we've gone down a path, because we've been testing, we've been measuring buy-in, and we've found a problem that we need to solve, then we should solve that problem, not just keep pressing on the journey unnecessarily. Okay. So I'm going to go back to communication again. To me, it's the most important aspect of going through this change process, and any innovation project is a change piece. People get nervous about change, and I think nervous is a kind word. A lot of people are terrified about change. I love it, for the most part, but I still hate moving furniture around a room. So I'm happy to do a big business level change, but then someone moves a couch from one side of the room to the other. I go, oh, geez, why'd you do that? And you think for some people that's amplified tenfold if you're going, we're going to change the entire way this business operates, and it's very different to whatever you've done in a law firm previously, and you no longer have to do hourly rates, and we're not going to measure this or this. And that's what they've done their whole life as a lawyer. They're like, hang on a second, I've come out of these big firms. This is how I've been measured. This is how I know I can succeed. I can follow this journey. I know that I can succeed, and I'll end up a partner, and life will be what life's meant to be. So again, it's getting that mission right and that buy-in and communicating effectively the whole way through. Again, we talk about Brene Brown's right type of vulnerability. I'm not going to go into chapter or verse on her other than to say she's someone that you should read. And if you want to get a long list of things to read over the Christmas break, feel free to email me after this. We've got a library of things I love, and I'm also happy to hear new things. But we have to really understand the social contract we have with our team, with our fellow leaders or directors or board within the business. We have to understand the social contract with clients. We've got to understand the social contract we have with our lawyers or within our industry and with our profession. We've sat down and mapped out social contracts as a business, going, okay, what does this change mean for all these people? And doing the different layers of connection points through that sort of social contract as well, because how close that social contract is will also depend on the nervousness, the impact, all those things that come off the back of it, and we need to have those good conversations around it. Like, what does failure mean? If we go through, and we still are going through this value-based pricing journey, and we've had certainly a lot of hiccups along the way. What happens if we fail? What does that mean? What does that mean for our team? What does that mean for me as someone that's wanted to lead it? We want to have those conversations. Is the change just another thing to worry about, or is it going to have a meaningful impact on people? Those are the conversations we want to have. How adaptable people are. If you've got a team that really want to only work a certain way, and that's what you've employed, and that's what your business looks like, there's going to be some tough conversations that need to happen there. And then you need to figure out the communication style that best suits your client, team, and the world within their work. So some people, like I've obviously already given away, I love a coffee. I love to sit down over a coffee and have a conversation. The other way I like to talk is I like to go for a walk. Walk-in meetings are one of my favourite things. I'd love to walk around. After this, I'll probably go on a walk around the harbour, because there's a few conversations we need to have about some matters. We'll go for a walk around the harbour, and we'll cover off a lot of material really quickly. Those are two communication styles I like. Other people within our business, like to listen to something in a staff meeting. They like to, get it on email and get an opportunity to think about it for a week or two, and then come back with a well-reasoned thought process out over email or in a document. Some people like to do it on whiteboards, mapping things out, and posters all over the walls and all those kind of things. Surveys and polls suit other people. And to us, it was learning to have embraced different communication styles and work out a way that we can get the data out of all those things and pull them together to get the most meaningful outcome. But assuming taking a one-size-fits-all cap for communication really is, again, something that may set you up for failure. If you just want to, if what you're sort of, if I was comfortable just getting on a soapbox and telling the team and then walking back into my office, I don't think I'll get the same outcomes as if we had individual conversations. So when you're communicating, share the vision, know the mission. I think that's really important. So as leaders in a business, you really have to articulate that purpose, vision, and everything else that surrounds it. At a high level, ours is around building better relationships, and there's a whole bunch of things that roll off the back of that I won't bore you with today. And then, you need your mission. For us, it's, moving to value-based pricing. Again, there's a whole bunch of things and reasons that roll off the back of that. Use storytelling. I think there was a great post rolling around LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago around Lego blocks and, the different ways it can get put together and what that means in terms of a narrative and an understanding once you put those pieces together. But storytelling is such a powerful tool. There's a reason that fables and parables and all those things exist, and that's because people get messages out of storytelling and work out how to use meaningful stories in your business or on your journey. A big one is provide the opportunity for your team to ask questions and get answers. And that is not, again, that's not a linear thing, and that's going to be different time periods and different approaches for everyone. So if I go up on the soapbox and went, okay, today we're moving to value-based pricing, and any questions? Some people come and they pummel you with questions. Some people will sit back and need to think about it. But if there's the only opportunity if there's only one pathway to ask questions and to get answers, you're not going to get the feedback or the level of data or information that you want. That goes for clients as well. Going in, doing a testing process with the client, sitting there and going, what do you think? May not get the same outcome as if you have a few different ways for them to get that feedback through to you. So provide the opportunity for clients, users, people in your team to ask questions and get the answers as well, and be clear and minimise ambiguity. We can say that we are a risk adverse bunch. That's what makes us good at doing a lot of our jobs. And we're managing risk for clients, and when you suddenly say we're going to go through change, that feels like risk to a lot of people. And lawyers like to also understand what's happening. Again, I don't mean to stereotype people, but that's working the experience I have, and it applies to most groups I've worked with over the years, I suppose. Having as little ambiguity as possible is really important, because people understand that vision, understand that mission, understand what's happening. They can take leadership, they can follow roles, they can understand what's happening. There's some things we'll come back to towards the tail end of this, so I'll keep working. I see some questions popping up, but I'll keep shooting through. These are some older photos. I didn't get a chance to upload the hedgehog cakes from yesterday. If I'd been a bit more organised last night, I would have thrown some in the slides. They were far more impressive than our little Lego builds, but having those culture building exercises. So I'll talk through what we're doing here. It was Easter a year or so ago. We had to build little Lego trucks without any plans other than one person having seen a picture of it. Not that exciting exercise. And I think I stole that idea from Mel at Hive, so thank you again, Mel. But even here's two examples of people trying to build the same thing using very different instructions. Both ended up with really functional working little diggers. They're still around the office. We've got a lot of I've got a 2-year-old who comes and plays with it, and I know a few other people do. So, but a fun exercise surrounded by chocolate and beer. It was a very happy day. But for lawyers, change and innovation can be difficult to grasp and adapt to. So making them feel comfortable and supported is really, really, really important, and helps a lot along the way. So spend a lot of time working out activities and exercises and approaches that can make life easier. And like I said, some of the things I came across, this one from Mel at Hive, I think it's phenomenal. When we were talking about other ones around managing risk and consequence, someone brought up the egg drop, and we did those, and that was actually a really interesting exercise in different ways people within the team solve problems. and also different ways, breaking into groups that people led different groups. The most recent one, and unfortunately I was on the road yesterday, so I only got to see the cakes from afar, but the hedgehog cook-off was probably the most recent example, but we've done a bunch of other ones on the way. So we also do that because when you're going through a big change piece, and using the example of our value-based pricing, it's hard. And again, I know I said that at the start, but it's easily forgotten. Like, you're on the journey and you forget how much change does impact on people and how much people are trying to do really cool and exciting things. And sometimes it's really hard and you just need to prop people up. Like, it's, I don't know, think of it maybe as I used to play basketball. I'm not fit enough for that much at the moment, but you get to that sort of 3/4 of the way through the game, you're getting a bit tired. The lactic acid is building up in your legs. Anyone that plays sport knows that you sort of need that pump to keep going. And sometimes doing innovation projects like that. One of the training sessions that I did want to mention, and I thought it was a really valuable exercise. We just did one where we just sat around in a circle with bits of paper and just handed them around, where people just wrote nice things about each other. And it just went around the table, all anonymous. So, you got a bit of paper back with positive things people thought about you in the team. And I know a lot of people still have those on their desks and whatever else, but for us, it was just going, okay, we were chatting to people and going, well, if I'm not doing 6 hours a day, what am I doing? If I can't do this, what am I doing? The change piece was starting to make them feel nervous about what value they bring to the table. So we did it. We went, okay, well, let's sit around in a circle and write what people like about each other. And people laughed when we started, but the feedback and the comments was quite phenomenal. We've done role play around risk, how to avoid doomsday scenarios, and that's around psychological safety. We've done role play with clients. We've sort of run through scenarios with them, and we've done role play as a team. I've probably dealt with enough difficult clients in my life. I was quite happy to play the difficult client, and another person was playing the lawyer, and we sort of, we mapped all that out. It's having people observe difficult behaviour and observe different risks and work out how to feel safe around it. And again, like I talked about earlier, the bake-offs, the Lego, the egg drops, those are things around thinking differently. So getting those design thinking, things flowing. And then the big one for us is also recognising incremental success. So back to the baseline, language, behaviour, questions, all those things. So we also do sometimes fortnightly, usually monthly, just feedback loops. Going, look, this is what we did last month. This is what we did this month. This is, how much value-based pricing we've done. This is what it looks like. Oh, look, it's shot up here. It's dropped a bit back here, but now we've got the data. We can actually say reasons around it. So the first few data loops weren't as useful as the ones now that we're sort of 15 months into the journey. But the data then starts to be useful. Look, we dropped off a bit this month, but that's that's not a bad thing, because what actually happened was this. So again, we talked about bringing diverse perspectives to the table, having a variety of people giving you feedback, communicating effectively. You need to get value and understand those perspectives. They all have different things. Like I said, if we were trying to build this just as a leadership team, we wouldn't be getting close to a successful product. We're getting very close to a successful product, and some of the best feedback has come from our day-to-day operations team, our accounts team, our design team. One of the guys in our design team, Sam, who just has his title as #NotALawyer. He'll come in and he'll go, well, why do you use these words? Why are you doing this way? Like, having someone that doesn't have that hard legal background, he's like, why, as a client, that would make no sense to me. Explain it to me. He challenges me as a lawyer to go, well, why would I use this language or approach things this way? He comes from a design thinking background. It's awesome. And having him come in and talk through a contract review with me, which is my bread and butter. I've spent the last 12 years reviewing construction contracts, and have someone come in that doesn't work in that space go, well, why have you used these words and not this? Has actually led to improvement. Like when we've done design documents, when we've talked about that value conversation with the client, that's something else we can add to the table. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the amount of emotional and mental energy that innovation takes. So I know we've got Maya's presentation around resilience, grit, high stress tolerance, adaptability, experimentation, openness to feedback, all of those things. So I won't take the lead on that today, but there's some wonderful stuff through CLI around that as well. So when you're measuring buy-in, you need to come back to that baseline. So part of the reason we emphasize know your mission, know your baseline, is you can keep coming back to it and you can see that improvement over time. So measure it again and again and again, and compare the results to the first measurements you took to see how your efforts are paying off. And don't don't expect it to be wins all the time. It's not going to be. So have a look at what's happening. Look at the results. Might want to recalibrate the exercises you're doing. You might want to look at what you're doing internally. You may even change the way you measure things over time. Like, you don't need to make life unnecessarily hard for yourself. And that's one thing I like to think about. I've sort of put down, don't invade Russia in winter. And that's like, why you've got a big task ahead of you. Why would you make things unnecessarily difficult? So getting those little wins, getting that incremental feedback, working out how to recalibrate, pivot. I hate that word, but pivot, where you need to, work out, oh, that measurement's really good, but this one's not giving us meaningful results. How do we look at that differently? Like, it's an ongoing process, but it's also active, and it's about that empathy piece and that communication piece. That's how you'll get better at it. So to continue to maintain that buy-in, you need reporting to the team and thanking them for the efforts. It comes back to communication. Like, people are going on a tough journey with you. Acknowledge it, share it with them, be kind to them. That's one of our lead values as a business, is be kind, and that is reporting back to them. It's been open, it's been honest. You need to celebrate wins, like when something really good happens. You need that pat on the back. You need that sort of fist pump. There's something really exciting about it. Like, when we've had a few clients, really big clients, go, actually, we really like this value-based pricing approach. Like, that's something to share and celebrate. And it's not just me in my office doing a silent fist bump. It's chatting to people, going, look, we've done this really well, and having people be able to say, look, I did this, I'm really excited, I want to celebrate it. Acknowledge the loss or learnings. Learnings is another word I hate, but acknowledge the loss. Sometimes it doesn't go well, and that's about doing debriefs. It's about getting that data around when things don't go well. Recognize the team. I don't think I can emphasize that enough. So examples of what we do, we do monthly reporting to the team on the breakdown of value-based pricing against traditional billable pricing. So like I mentioned earlier, I originally wanted to do a hard drop dead date. Everything we're doing moving forward is value-based pricing, but that didn't work, so we had to push that to the side, and we've actually had a far better uptake doing a gradual death of the hourly rate within our business than when I tried to do a hard drop dead date. But so we actually now measure the data of what value-based pricing is coming in against billable pricing. If there's a shift one way or another, we try and get the data to work out that. And for the team, they can see the increase in the ratio between those pricing options over time. We're also got ongoing surveys, conversations, meetings with the team, engagement with the client, debriefs. Debriefs is something I can't emphasize enough, like sitting down and doing debriefs with your team after you finish something, whether that's a project or a piece of work. Same with the clients around what that was like is invaluable. So what did we learn? I'm conscious we're 50 minutes in. Know your mission. You need to have clear leadership, lots and lots of empathy, measure buy-in before you start your project, garner buy-in with communication, training, looking after your culture, taking the team on the journey, all of those things. You need to maintain buy-in by reporting to your team around the wins, losses, learnings, and the efforts of your team in guiding that change, and measure buy-in again and again and again to see how your efforts have worked. Like I said, it's not an easy process. It's a gradual project, and you need to get your house in order right at the start to ensure that you're on the best path to succeeding against that. And I think we're up to questions.
We are indeed.
We'll pull ones up. I can just see one out at the moment. I'll just read it and then go from there. Is that
sure? Yeah, absolutely.
So, calling out social contracting with clients and staff is innovative. Aside from value you mentioned, what other components are contained in a social contract? Is it all communication aspects you mentioned on the slide, or even more than that? Do you record the social contract as part of the engagement letter and have a social contract check-in with clients and staff? Look, there's a whole bunch of things that go into what a social contract looks like. If you're really excited, you can go back and read, Rousseau and the original sort of stuff around it. We largely talk about it in the context of, value, trust, how people are feeling about it, psychological safety, all those elements are the things we start to talk about that in that social contract. And COVID probably put a bit of a different slant on it, so some of the things we're going, okay, how happy do you feel? How safe do you feel? How are things going? It's just a general check-in, but we think about it a fair bit. we're redesigning our engagement process at the moment, but how we do that social contract has been part of that conversation. I can't say we have that in the same way. We regularly do check-ins, but I don't necessarily call it a social contract check-in. It's just, again, understanding those elements that might matter to people and trying to see how it's going. I think there's more, again, it's not limited to the communication pieces I've put up there. But yeah, there's bits and pieces that come, that come up that might fit your business differently to what ours does.
Fantastic. Michael, we've got a couple of other questions. Would you mind just clicking back to the lessons learned slide? Because I think someone wants to have a quick look at that as well. Thank you. And then a question that we've got as well is, how do you particularly get partner buy-in if it requires them to change behaviour and give up some control?
That's a good question. So we've got a benefit that we're a young firm. So this was something we had right from the outset. When we had our purpose around building better relationships, these things sort of sat in the background. So maybe I took the approach that I can't renovate the house, I need to burn it down and rebuild it. That might be a problem I had to start with. I've had some conversations with people around this. Not all people will buy in and some might not go on the journey with you. I think particularly if you're in a larger organisation, that's something that needs serious consideration and subject to what your purpose, what your mission looks like. There might be a few people that fall off along the way, and that doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't mean they're right or wrong or anything like that. But it might not mean they're the right fit for what your business is. And I don't think there's any shame in accepting that or any embarrassment in accepting that. I think it's important to make sure if you've got those elements right at the outset, so people do understand that mission and that purpose piece, at least they know what's happening. You may lose some. We've chosen not to bring people into our business. I suppose that's the perspective I have. I've sat down with people and said what we're doing. They're like, well, this is how we've done it and we can make a lot of money doing it that way. I'm like, oh, that's heaps cool. That's not who we are. And that's, you're going to land somewhere and you're going to be successful, and that's great. And I'm looking forward to, catching up with a coffee or beer, but, we're not on the same plane for that. And that's cool. So, the partners have to buy into the mission. They have to buy into the purpose. If they don't do so, you will not get any change in behaviour or any ability to give up control. And like I said, if you truly are doing that, and that is really meaningful and necessary for your business, expect there might be some casualties. And again, particularly if the mission and purpose are in place, that's okay.
I think you've underscored two things there that I just wanted to draw out and see if you've got any further comments on as well. One of them is that in what you said, there's a courage of conviction in that, which you often don't see in organisations, that you do have the mission and you are going to stick with it versus compromise it as soon as somebody pushes back. But I guess the other thing is too, there's an aspect to how you manage that out. And law firms in particular have been very bad at this. If there's not a match, it's like, let's block them out of all accounts, turn off their phones and kick them out the door as quickly as possible. So in what you're describing, it is a conversation around just a different match in expectations, but it's a process of managing that person out with integrity and dignity as well.
Absolutely. And if you are communicating effectively, there might be pushback early on and then they might have buy-in. So I think there's a lot, you might lose a huge amount going, well, you're not on the journey with me, here's the door, get out. I think, one, I don't think that's an appropriate way to treat people at any level, but, pushing that to another discussion for another day. Again, doing that in a meaningful way, if it isn't a fit, at least people get to choose that on their own terms. And it might be, like I said, there's the nervousness for change and partners giving up, change in behaviour, giving up control and losing things that have led to success for them over, 5, 10, 15, 20 year plus career is hard to do. But, you will get the buy-in, and particularly once you start to, if you're measuring from that baseline as well, you will start to get the runs on the board. It might even mean more profits, depending on what the project is. After the cost piece, the profits might start to come, and oh wow, I did see we got a little tick up there. Maybe if we multiply that by 50, because we're doing it across all practice areas, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's working out how to do it, and we certainly haven't been perfect with it. So I'm not saying this is a we've done best scenario. Most of this is I've done that very wrong, and now I know how to do that better.
But I think too, if you're removing kind of those obstacles or challenges, however they present themselves, as you're saying earlier, you're kicking open the door to creativity. So you might end up with a whole bunch of related or allied streams of revenue that you hadn't thought of before, simply because people now can come out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah, and I think I'll use that as a chance to roll into the follow-up question, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the next question in the chat is, what do you think about top-down mandating the change? Does this have a negative impact on people's perception of the change, or can it work? Again, it absolutely can work, but it needs to be meaningful purpose, meaningful missions. Again, change for the sake of change or innovation for the sake of innovation will very much feel like that for your team. I don't believe it should always be mandated or necessarily mandated from the top down, because there are extraordinary people in your business at all different levels that have the ability, once you've got that culture of innovation rolling through, they're going to come up with great ideas that will lead to different items of success through the business, and that might be more money. It might be shorter days. Like they might work out a way that cuts half an hour out of everyone's day. Like the whole point is you don't know what that's going to be, so you want that not to be a the managing director comes up with the change piece, and that's how life works. You need to start to have that innovation agenda rolling through your whole business, and have avenues for people to partake or get involved in it, or to bring ideas to the table. But I do think for us, we started with a top-down approach because, again, when I started the business, there was me. So I suppose it was top and bottom down at that point. But there is some benefit to it, but again, it's about purpose, it's about mission.
Got really quick answers to questions then, as Michael, I imagine as well, when it was just you, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, I probably spend way more time vacillating than I do at the moment.
There's another quick question there as well. And I think it's, and I know that you've discussed this throughout your presentation, but I think it's pointing slightly more towards metrics. So the question is, how do you measure buy-in? And I guess if you wouldn't mind just pulling out some metrics there, maybe in response to that.
Yeah, so you're going to have to find your own. This is not a cop-out answer, I promise.
Yeah.
You're going to have to find what you want to measure within your business. So for us, like I said, we looked at, let's go with a hard one. How many lawyers and which lawyers are now putting out new matters as value-based pricing matters? That's an easy one. I can say, okay, me, Michael, I used to do 100% of time recorded matters. I've noticed I've priced 5 matters this month and 3 are value-based price, and I can see that incremental change. I then, for us then debrief forms. If we do debrief forms, not with every client, but with regular clients, and see what their experience was, and then go, okay, did they enjoy that experience, and start to work out ways to put those metrics together. Repeat business, like let's say, again, I'm using value-based pricing, but it could be an innovation piece. You've done one bit of work with a client, you get another bit of work faster. You can look at retention of employees, for example. Like there's a whole bunch of things you can start to look at. The reason I gave Culture Amp as a tool, and I'm not saying it's the perfect tool, I'm just giving examples of ones we use internally. They have a bunch of things in there to measure buy-in. So like I said, I don't know how to do all this perfectly. I'm working it out for the first time, and we're 4 years into a business. So we've tried to find tools we can where we can go, okay, well, someone else might have worked this out better. And then we get, we do some of those surveys through Culture Amp around buy-in, and it gives us data, and we then choose, does that make sense for us? We might tweak the questions the next time around because it wasn't the right cycle. So, one, you need to spend the time thinking about, well, what kind of measurements would be important for our project? But 2, there's lots of resources out there. And I mean, yes, it's paying a little bit of money here and there, but it might save you a lot in the long run.
And also being open to experimentation by the sound of it, that you might try a bunch, but you may not end up with the same bunch at the end. And you may change that from time to time as well. Is that a fair comment as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to that purpose piece though. Like I can chase shiny things all day. Like I can find a new tool and spend a day playing with it, but am I doing it in a meaningful way that's going to add value to the business and to the team is really important. Going, okay, how is this important? Why is this important? How does it fit in with what we're doing rather than that looks cool? Because I have a tendency to go, that looks cool, and then go and get something and it sits there for 3 months because I've found something else to play with.
You and I have a lot to discuss after this, I think, Michael, as well. Look, thank you so much for another brilliant session. It really was a delight to spend the time with you. And I should take the opportunity as well to thank you again for acting as a co-coach for our redefining value area for our CLI Innovation Incubator. I'm kind of envious of the people in your group. Actually, I think I should be attending that every month as well.
They're scary smart. I'm impressed every week. I look forward to it. Every month I look forward to it. No, thanks, Terry. That's very kind, and we love working with you.
Well, thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, as well, for attending. It's really been a pleasure to have you here. Don't forget to follow us, all of us, Michael included, because I know he's made the offer and it's genuine to reach out to him on LinkedIn or wherever of the many other places. Thank you very much that you will find him. So please do that. And don't forget also to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So there's a couple more coming along in the innovation series. So please do tune in for those as well before we see the end of the year. But again, Michael, as always, huge thanks. Fantastic session. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. See you later.
Take care, everyone. Bye.